Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Belgium are off to a great start at the World Cup, winning in fine fashion against Panama, but there was something not right with their performance. What was wrong? Why didn't they impress us here at the interviews? Don't worry, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Belgium beat Panama. So Belgium, Panama, Belgium off to a great start at the World Cup, 3-0. They are looking, or many people would think that they're looking like they're prize to go on in this World Cup, possibly make a deep run. That could happen, but you can't base it off this first performance. They were good, but they weren't that great. They had a few issues with their system. They struggled in large sets against a team that is arguably the worst side in the World Cup. When we break this down, we have to look at Belgium, 3-4-2-1 for the most part. Lukaku ahead of Mertens and Eden Hazard. As wingbacks, they had Carrasco and they had Munier. And midfield, Kevin De Bruyne and Witsel. Panama, more of a 4-1-4-1. They had Perez up front, Barcenas and Rodriguez on the flanks, and Godoy and Cooper ahead of Gomez. When you think about Belgium, what are their strengths? You think about the key players, the individuals, but how would they come together to make this a well-oiled machine that is ready to become amongst the elite sides in the world? When we break it down, the way they were set up, you had Hazard and Mertens both kind of tucking in a bit. You had the fullbacks pushed way up, and this is different than Germany because although Witsel and De Bruyne aren't your natural holding midfielders, they did have three center backs there who could cover the spaces if required. The other aspect is Panama didn't offer much of a counter-attacking threat. You saw Perez a bit deeper, looking to get on De Bruyne, looking to get on Witsel, whoever was the deepest, he tried to get on them, try to prevent them from dictating the tempo of the game from the start. But like yesterday, you have to look at it, those center backs, Vertonghen and Tyrrell, could push forward and know that they still have two men behind there, and they have the ability to play those passes, so that was key. With that being said, Carrasco pushed forward, Munier pushed forward, and what was the big element for Belgium in this first half was based on the fact that Hazard and Mertens were able to find pockets of space on both sides of Gomez. It didn't matter which side, he was unable to really stop them from pushing forward. And if Perez was a bit higher, then that would force Godoy and Cooper to try and step to De Bruyne and Witsel. If they do that, then look at all this space that Gomez has to cover. Easy for Hazard to tuck into, easy for Mertens to tuck into, and that was the theme of the first half. Because when they were a bit deeper, Panama, Belgium had problems creating from deep. De Bruyne couldn't pick up passes. Witsel couldn't find passes in between the lines. Lukaku was a bit starved for service. They found spaces in wide areas, and that was down to obviously the advanced positioning of the wingbacks, but the fact that specifically on the left, Carrasco and Hazard are able to interchange and play that attacking role. It also helps that with a three-man backline, the exterior center backs could push out and cover that space if required to ensure that there are no counter-attacking threats, especially with the Witsel and De Bruyne sitting in central areas. So they were covered in that aspect. Against bigger teams, perhaps that may not be able to happen because they'll have a counter-attacking threat and their press will be better, but that wasn't the case here. So when we look at it, at times you could have Carrasco moving in central, you could have Hazard coming in, Hazard draws attention to markers, the markers pull to him, and that creates space in here in the center of the pitch for players to find space. So that was a key element that happened. We saw Hazard find a lot of space in the pockets regardless, but when you look on the other side, that didn't really happen because Munier isn't that much of an attacking player. So when they did interchange and Munier received the ball in pockets of spaces, he didn't really do much. And it was more of just finding Mertens in that pocket of space. You look at their first chance of the game, one of their first chances of the game, it stems from Mertens just tucking into that space, Munier finding him switching the ball a cross goal for Hazard. Hazard dummies it. The defender falls for it. Carrasco's able to charge into that space, in half space, should score, doesn't. But that's a key element to what they were doing very well. There are a lot of times when Mertens was tucked in and he dragged the defender out with him. Diagonals were able to play into half spaces for Meunier, who was running forward into that half space by the byline, but he was unable to get onto the ball. However, that was basically the key element that really helped Belgium get forward, besides the fact that the Panamanian defenders and center midfielders made a lot of mistakes, and that was key. Torres giving up the ball from a back pass that Hazard should have scored. Escobar dispossessed by Kevin De Bruyne. Cooper giving up the ball, which all led to counterattacks stemmed by Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard, the two best players on this team. You cannot win games when you're making mistakes like that. But like I said, when they were dropping deeper, the Belgian side, and into those pockets of spaces in half space for Mertens and Eden Hazard, they were able to dominate. However, the problem was that they lacked that final cut touch in the final third, and that was pivotal. There's one play where Hazard and Mertens swapped flanks, which they did often. He dropped into that space, received the ball from Meunier, turned, ran on goal, pushed off Godoy, but fired a shot wide. Hazard had a lot of chances. There was one where he drifted from the left flank, cut in, found Mertens again in that space at the edge of the box. Keeper made another key save. Belgium were finding holes on either side of Gomez, but they weren't executing, and that was key. Off to the second half, you think about the goals that they did score, all stemming from individual brilliance. The Mertens volley. Think about the goal that Lukaku scores, a great De Bruyne cross into the box. It does stem from De Bruyne and Hazard combining on the left flank, where Hazard drew 4 markers to him, but still nothing really coming from their overall play, but they were able to find that quality, and that was the big difference. The third goal, a counterattack stemming from Hazard, the ball won by De Bruyne, played into Lukaku behind the line, but those were the goals that Belgium scored. But with their overall play in the second half, the only thing that really changed was the fact that when you put these markers back into position, the line started to pull out as the game wore on. De Bruyne was able to get forward and find the ball in pockets of spaces between the lines. So was Mertens, so was Lukaku, Hazard, and as the game stretched, Belgium found more space. But again, just not being able to create chances wave after wave. There was no real fluidity in their play. At times, they were a bit disjointed. Sometimes you think on the right, perhaps they could have brought on, let's say, a Chadley or perhaps Januzaj, who could push forward and then have the same combination that Carrasco and Hazard had, where they could interchange positions and get Hazard out wide when they need to, and at times push him into pockets of space when they also could. And that could provide a different type of balance against this side who doesn't really look to push forward. Perhaps they could use that against Tunisia in this group, and that would be key. But besides that, Belgium were superb in that element where they were able to push forward, but again, just not enough from them on the attacking phase. Without the ball, they dropped into 4-5-1. No real issue there. They weren't really tested. Just one play where the ball was clipped over the defense to Murillo, and Courtois was off his line quick to ensure that he stopped that chance. But besides that, Belgium not really tested, not really having to push their gears, but when it did at one point look like how are they going to score, but individual brilliance paid off, and you have to think, can they improve? Will Roberto Martinez add something to this attack? Is there any way they could be better than this? Because they will face better opposition, and they will need to be better if they're looking to win the World Cup. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.